it's Sarah with the West Lincoln Public Library, back for another teen book review for the month of January. I hope everyone had a great New Year and a great holiday. I know I spent it catching up on some of the reading that I have been trying to do, and I am so excited to tell you about the book that we have in store for you today. So, who here was a fan of the classic 1990s The Mummy series with Brendan Fraser? Because I know I was absolutely obsessed with it when I was a kid, and I still am. The world of ancient Egypt, archaeology, hieroglyphics, studying about the undead, and basically going to poke your nose in things you probably have no business in trying to solve. That is the exact theme of our novel that I read for you today, What the River Knows by Isabel Ibañez. Now, I will say it's kind of like The Mummy meets A Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, because not only does this book have some absolutely stunning imagery when it comes to painting you a visual of being inside an ancient Egyptian tomb of long-lost pharaohs, but it also has an incredible mystery aspect to it. I was blown away by this novel. I knew as soon as we were going to order it for the library I was going to read it, and I couldn't wait to review it because I had this feeling it was going to be an instant hit for me, and I was right. Now, I have not read anything else by Isabel Ibañez, so I would love some recommendations. Also, if anyone has anything they'd like to say in the comments, please let me know. First things first, this book is recommended for teens. There is some mild language, but nothing explicit that goes on in the contents of this particular book. There is some imagery and dealing with magic, but nothing that I would say is particularly offensive or triggering for any content readers. There is character death in this book, which, believe me, I didn't see coming and left me pretty wrecked about it for quite a while, but I will not get into that because that is obviously a major spoiler. It is the first in what seems to be a duology, and the sequel is actually going to be coming out in November, and you can bet I am going to be the first person to get my hands on it. Now, without further ado, let me go into a little bit of backstory for the series of What the River Knows. Now, it is essentially set in 19th century's Buenos Aires, and the daughter of two highly respected Egyptologists and archaeologists, Inez Oliveira, has basically the same drive to study Egypt that her parents do. Unfortunately, she's never actually stepped foot in Egypt. Her parents have never brought her along on any of their digs, their explorations. They always leave her behind. And she lives for the letters that she receives from them, months between. They basically spend almost 8 months of the year there, traveling back and forth, and she has the mindset that Egypt is her parents' first love, and that she will always come second. And it's very bittersweet to read about that, accepting, like a child so quickly accepting that her parents will never see her as a priority, especially since she's their only child. She spends a lot of time with her cousins, who offer a really great support system for her, as well as her aunt. And she does have a close tie to them, but of course it's not particularly the same thing as being with her parents. Another thing that I adore about Inez's character is she is so driven by her own love for exploration and for knowledge and for education. She herself has studied, as she said, she can recite the pharaohs back and forth in chronological order. She can read hieroglyphs, and she basically wants to prove herself to her parents, have her brought along for their next dig. And so she sends another letter, as she always does, desperately hoping that they will bring her. In the first chapter of the book, we learn about the magic system that is in this world, because even though, I will say, if you're looking for mummy-esque fight scenes in this novel where you are running from the undead or fleeing tombs full of flesh-eating scarabs, we don't have that quite yet. Hopefully maybe in the second book, there might be something a little more fully fleshed out in that regards. But the magic system in this book is really unique. Her mother and father often find relics or artifacts that are laced with magic, and how magic exists in this world is that like hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people sought to perform rituals to basically imbue certain objects with magic. And as such, magic would leach into the ground or the area around it and stay there forever. However, in the similar sense in the vein of archaeology, which is admire but don't touch sort of thing, magic weakens. Those little objects get weakened every time they are touched or they're passed through other hands, until eventually the only thing you will feel is like a brief sense of it. So obviously it's very important in the sense of making sure these things stay untouched and preserved. Her father sends her back actually a ring that she receives, and she tells no one about it. She's surprised because they usually keep magic under lock and key. And upon receiving this ring, she is hopeful that maybe this is a sign that her family's changed their mind. And then she receives correspondence, a letter from her uncle, who she has not seen in 10 years, and it brings the news that her parents died on their most recent exploration. And she spends the next year or two fighting to make her way to Egypt. She is determined to figure out what happened, find the country and explore it that her parents loved so much, see what it was that they were working on when they passed away. But to her surprise, when she gets there, her uncle has absolutely nothing to want to do with her. She is hell-bent to be in Egypt, and he is hell-bent to keep her away. So, upon realizing that basically he's not going to be getting rid of her, her uncle kind of puts her in charge of, her uncle puts his protege, so to speak, in charge of her. His name is Wit, and he is essentially, their dynamic, first of all, is wonderful. It's very rivals to lovers. She has something she desperately wants to prove. He doesn't initially really want to put up with it. I can actually show you some very cool artwork. So I have the Fairy Loot edition of this book, and these are our characters. So this is Wit, and this is Inez. And what I love about their dynamic as it changes throughout the book is that there is a kind of spark that comes from them almost immediately. They have excellent quips and banter, and the humor between them is great. But Inez has a goal in mind. She wants to learn more about her parents' research, and she wants to learn more about them. So she never lets anything pull her aside from that. And Wit, even though it does take a little while for that foundation to form between them, supports her along the way. He sees that that is her goal, and he's not going to get in front of it. There is danger as things pile up, secrets that they begin to unravel, things that she never knew about her parents and why they did what they did. And the entire book is so grounded in the sense of finding things that you didn't know were there, whether they're in people, or they're in a land, or they're hidden behind a puzzle that you can't quite solve. And I think the ability to connect to certain characters is what makes this book so appealing and engrossing. I have truly adored being able to read about the beautiful Egyptian architecture, even just how she describes traveling by boat to get to Africa. Inez talks about how much she hated it, and it feels human, so incredibly human. Even though, of course, this is a work of fantasy and there's magic and there's fiction, I did not at all have a hard time finding myself engrossed and buying into the realism of the situation. Even the magic system, the idea that it fades upon touch and coming in contact, and that is why it must be preserved, seemed incredibly realistic to me. And of course, how the characters interact with each other. Her uncle has reasons for acting the way that he does, and he tries to keep his niece at arm's length. Inez has, of course, her absolute hard, fast drive to prove herself. And her cousins, of course, are all there to support her as well. And that is another reason that I think the last 100 pages or so took off for this book. I flew through them. And I joked that I could review this without finishing the book. I knew I was absolutely going to love no matter what happens. And while I still do love this book now, that just as much as now that I finished it, the ending definitely caught me off guard, and certainly instilled the idea that yes, there has to be another book. So I was thrilled when I looked onto Goodreads and saw it's coming out at the end of this year already, and it's going to be wonderful. If you are a fan of romance, rivals to lovers, academia, ancient Egypt, this book has everything you're going to look for, as well as a series of great mysteries and just a general true passion for the world of archaeology. We were actually joking about all of the references to old archaeological traditions and things back in the day, and it was clear that Isabel Ibañez did her work researching that world. It is done with extreme loyalty and great sincerity. I am wholeheartedly excited to read the rest of the series. The next 10 months are going to be agony as I wait for the book to come out in November. In the meantime, I will be rereading it, probably binging all of the Mummy movies in the meantime, and sincerely hoping that you all come and pick up your copy from the Smithville branch. It will be here. You can definitely check for Libby online to see if there are other accessible formats if you're looking for it. And if the copy is checked out here, which I anticipate it will be very soon, you can definitely come in and we can see if we can find it for you through our link cooperative system in Niagara. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to reading another book for you next month, and I hope you all have a lovely January. Bye.